Hey everybody, hopefully you've already seen the first teaser video that's dropped for the Z9. Let's talk about it. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to talk about the bits that I found important from this 30-second clip. Obviously not too much to talk about here, but there's a couple of interesting things, and this is the first time officially that we've seen the back of a Z9 as well. So there was a couple of interesting things in this video. So this first scene here, there's not really too much to take away from this. We can clearly see that this is a Z9 full grip body like we know about, and we can see this is with a 50mm 1.2. Now this scene here, again, doesn't really add anything. We've seen the camera from the front. We've not seen all of the details, but we have seen the camera from the front already, so nothing really too drastic here. I think a lot of the interesting stuff starts to come later on in the video. So this is where we see the screen in action for the first time. Again, officially, this is the first time we've seen this screen. It's the first time that we've seen it as a flip-out screen as well. We do get a very small look at the top plate screen, but it is conveniently covered by a thumb. I'm pretty sure that is intentional to kind of keep things hidden right now. But we can get a better view of the dial on that left-hand side of the camera, and we can also get a better view of that viewfinder as well. So there's a little bit more detail that gets revealed shortly, but for now, this is the first time we can see the screen being a flip-out screen. So in this scene, we can see the photographer again shooting above him, using the screen as a flip-out screen again. So we know it's going to be able to flip out at least those two axes as well. This obviously generally means it's not going to be a screen that can rotate forward. We can quite clearly tell from this that it's generally going to be a screen that is still attached to the back of the camera rather than being visible from the front of the camera. We do get a good look at the rear grip here, so we do get a good look at some of the buttons across the bottom of the camera and also that vertical grip as well. We can also see here that there isn't a secondary screen on the back of the camera like you would find on a D6 or a D5, for example. So this next scene gets really interesting. So this is where we get a really good look at the back of the camera. This is the first look at the back of a Z9 and what buttons are on it, what controls there are, and there's obviously lots to see here. So we generally get a good idea of button placement, we get a good idea of the large viewfinder, the circular viewfinder. Couple of things that are worth noting: the location of the playback button. So that playback button's moved to that top right rather than it being on that kind of left-hand side of the camera. We can also see that there's a function 4, which is on that top left of the camera. And then we get a good idea for the other layout of buttons, so including the autofocus joysticks. So we can see there's 2 of those, for example. And the rest of the button layout looks very familiar to Z users. We still have the same switch to switch between stills and video, which is fairly given now. And this time we get a better look at that left-hand side dial. We get an idea of the drive modes around that dial, so we can see that it says single, low, and high. We can also see much more detail about those buttons across the vertical grip. So we can see LAN, we can see there's a little microphone. I'm going to hazard a guess that that's going to be for voice recording or a voice note. And then we can see quality and white balance. What's really interesting is right at the end of this video, just as it cuts to black, the photographer just lifts the edge of the screen up from a portrait orientation. So this kind of then instantly tells us that this screen can only flip out like a traditional screen on a Z6 or a Z7, but it also tells us that this screen can then flip out in a portrait orientation as well. That is obviously a first for Nikon cameras. I'm well aware that it's available in other cameras, but this is definitely the first time I've had that ability to flip out. Really useful for anyone shooting in a portrait orientation, whether it's landscape, whether it's actual portraiture, whether it's sports, wildlife, whatever it is. Just gives you the ability to look through that screen when you're shooting low and then still be able to compose the shot correctly without you have to try to kind of bend down and trying to find the screen, because you have the ability to flip it out, which is really cool. Now, one thing I'd like to note at this point as well, if we take a look at that whole section of the photographer turning the camera, one of the things that you'll see is we can obviously see on the back of the camera how the camera's autofocusing, and we can also see that as the photographer turns the camera, he's actually just manual focusing the lens. So he's using the manual focusing barrel of the lens as a twisting mechanism. I've already seen a couple of comments where people are saying that when he changed the orientation, the subject went out of focus. And that's purely because as he's turning the camera, he's twisting that barrel, and that twisting of that barrel is just taking the lens out of focus. But as soon as he then activates the autofocus again, it comes back into focus, and you can, that's, you know, that's obviously how you'd expect a camera to work. So just keep that in mind. But we can also see on the back of the camera some little bit of detail around how the camera's going to autofocus. Definitely some interesting stuff in this video. Definitely some interesting things around ergonomics, buttons. We now know what the back of the camera looks like, and definitely some interesting stuff around that screen. So we now know what the type of screen that it is. Really excited to use that from a portrait orientation as a flip out screen as well. Especially from a landscape point of view, that's been something that I've wanted for a hell of a long time. So really excited that the teaser video is here. There's quite clearly a lot of things that Nikon are still being very secretive about, but I'm really excited to see some of the other teaser videos, and hopefully this quick look at this teaser video and some of the things that I noticed, some of the things that I'm excited about, has got you guys excited as well. Now, if you have any questions about things that I can actually talk about, then do let me know. But just have a chat with me in the comments, have a think, tell me how you guys are excited. Are you not excited? What you're looking forward to? What do you want this camera to be? Are you even not concerned about this camera? You might be thinking, actually, you know what? I'm more concerned about what the Z9 means for other Nikon cameras. You might be in a case of keeping an eye on what the Z9 does, but then actually waiting for that Z9 to kind of affect the other cameras in the Nikon market. So hopefully you found this quick video useful. As always, thank you so much for watching, and I will definitely see you when the next teaser video arrives. Goodbye.